So instead of just reviewing the Fallout show, I thought we should reopen the lounge. What do you think?
Okie dokie.
Welcome to the Nuka-Cola Lounge.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Nuka-Cola Lounge, where we talk about all things Fallout. Man, it's been a long time since I said those words. This is Ash here with you. I'm here with Subsidian, as always. We are the Triple S League, and we are here to talk about Fallout. And today, specifically, we're going to be doing a review of the Fallout TV show. We're going to do a spoiler-free section right off the bat at first, so if we'll warn you when we start talking about spoilers. If you haven't finished the series yet, by the way, finish this. Watch. We'll warn you when the spoilers start. It's going to be hard to not get excited and talk about certain things that have to do with the show, but we'll just keep it a nice, chill, general review right off the bat. Can you tell that I loved the show? I love the Fallout show. I'll just put that up. I'll put that out there right off the bat. I think it's amazing. But we're going to get into some of the nuance, the nitty gritty, some of the controversies about it. Although we're not going to go too deep into the lore controversies in this episode. We're going to do that in either the next or the next two episodes of the Nuka-Cola Lounge, because yes, we are reviving the series.
But Ash, the sky is falling. The sky is falling.
Well, yes, maybe it's just an acorn that fell on your head.
We're gonna be responding to a lot of the.
Yes, we will.
The sky is falling. The sky is falling. It's over for Fallout's dead. It's dead again.
It's dead again. I mean, it's been killed. It's been killed multiple times. I mean, I don't know how that works, but the next couple episodes of the Nuka-Cola Lounge will be diving further into the lore. We're going to talk specifically about who started the war in one of the next two episodes, and then the other one will be general lore criticisms. And does the lore of the TV show match up with the lore of the games? But in this episode, we are going to be doing a review of the Fallout TV show. But first, I just want to say it is so nice to be back. Can you believe, Saib, we're coming up on 9 years since our first episode of the Nuka-Cola Lounge, the show that launched our channel. Unbelievable. And it's nice to have positive Fallout stuff to talk about after the debacle that was Fallout 76. And I hear Fallout 76 is good now. But
yeah, I mean it's much better now. Like it's not perfect, of course, and I want to stipulate all of this. It's like Fallout 1 and 2 was pretty close to perfect games. Like they really were. Now they are something that people forget is they are full of bugs, and they are full of game breaking things that you could do to not only accidentally screw over yourself as far as quest goes, but also break the overall setup and certain things within the game. There's all manner of kind of crazy bugs, and people forget that they look back at some of the early Nintendo games and they go, those were finished products that don't have any bugs. But if you go onto a bug site and look up bugs for any of the first gen games, it's like you can do basically anything. You can easily glitch yourself to have to be immortal, or to have any kind of super cheats or infinite money, anything like that. It's this is very easy. So we have to remember that that no game is perfect on arrival, but certainly people have rose tinted glasses when remembering certain games over other games a little bit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially when you remember how amazing games looked back in the day, and then you go up and play it and you're like, wow, this looks like crap. It blew your mind at the time, and you're remembering it blowing your mind at the time. And yes, Fallout 1 and 2, excellent games. But
yeah,
where were you going with that, though?
Just to reiterate that, there's no Fallout game that is currently perfect in the way that I would see it. So when we're talking about when we're talking about Fallout 4, when we're talking about Fallout 3, when we're talking about 76, it's there are big, massive problems with all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And there are obvious faults and holes and lore implications that are that are problematic, that haven't been fleshed out properly. But there's also a lot of bizarre stuff that happens, like, you know, a Star Trek shuttle appearing in Fallout 2. Yeah, that's canon. That's a canon thing that happened, right? Okay. There's laser weapons that recharge based off of the sunlight and give you basically an unlimited energy weapon just by holding the weapon up in the sunlight, and it will charge, and then you will be able to kill somebody with it. It's like that. There's all kinds of quirky stuff. There is talking rodents in some, there's talking death claws in others, and in others there's not. And so everything's all over the place. That means that, yes, we don't have a coherent like sense of stuff, but when somebody points at like a silly little thing happening in the show or in 76 or in Fallout 4 or 3 or whatever, it's like, yeah, but that's also there in a ton of other stuff. One of my favorite Easter egg hidden things is you could find a giant dinosaur's foot having clearly crushed somebody in its step in the middle of the desert for no random apparent reason. And that's just part of that is canon part of the game. Insane, crazy, yes. Lovable, yeah. So we have to remember that not every game is perfect, and certainly Bethesda is not a perfect company, but it could always be worse, and obviously we need to hold their feet to the fire. But I think that's been done here. There's a lot of like controversy about like, oh, Bethesda hates New Vegas. It's like they really don't. Like, not the core devs, not the creative people in the companies. They don't hate that, you know, they don't hate Obsidian or any of the previous devs from Interplay or the original titles. They really don't. They do like it, and the controversy is that sometimes they have a different vision of what that means for the future of the franchise, right?
Yeah, and I think you're referring to a lot of, and we'll get into this more again in future episodes, like I said. But yes, one of the criticisms that has been leveled at the show is that it erases Fallout New Vegas lore. Well,
it doesn't.
It actually doesn't. We won't go into the details
We're going to go
right now.
deep into that.
Yeah,
in
but
a later
it
episode,
actually doesn't. And Todd Howard has come out in an interview and talked about all of this. And no, they're not erasing New Vegas. I don't see why they would. It's a canon game. It's one of their most popular games. I mean, that would be what a stupid move that would be for them to take a dump on Fallout New Vegas. That would be horrible. What's probably the most hyped or wanted future Fallout game? Probably New Vegas 2. That's what people want. Anyway, we'll put that aside for the moment. Let's just focus back onto the show and ask the question: is it good? And my answer: yes, it is. All right. Have a good night, everybody. It's been nice being back with you. No, just kidding. Of course, we're going to go into more detail. I will give it... Man, I give it a really high score. Is it a perfect show? No, and as I do a second viewing, I mean, just in the sense that nothing's perfect. I've been wanting to do a second viewing of it, and I intend to in the near future when I am able to find the time to do that. But honestly, I have a hard time thinking of something bad to say about it, except no protectrons. What the heck? Now, maybe it's because of where it's set, but protectrons are my favorite, and they didn't have any. Of course, they didn't have a lot of robots. They had a few, but, you know, we saw the Mr. Handys a little bit. And I wonder if some of that came down to budget restrictions.
Yes, and that's something else I should add about this, is like, they didn't know whether the show was going to be a success or not. Mm-hmm. They gave it a decent budget, but they did not give it the budget that they have given other shows. And if you've been watching a lot of Amazon TV, you'll know that they don't have a big digital like effects budget there. I've been binging this show called Upload because it's kind of put in the same category as the Fallout one quite a bit. They're in there to their third season, and the show is like their FX. I sometimes wonder if it's just 3 high schoolers with a bunch of like free programs, because it is not it now it's they've kind of leaned into that a little bit, but they have these future cars driving around on streets, and they look as fake as like future cars looked in like 1980s stuff. It's like it is clearly just a very not great thing strapped into some footage, and that's kind of bad. I mean, it's kind of like, you know, it's not super polished like a lot of people would expect. And I'm not saying that the $1 trillion company that is Amazon could afford to like put some more money into things, but
well, they want to get that return on investment. I mean, they need to make sure.
And TV has definitely gone off the rails as far as like budgets go, for sure. And there's some absolutely horrendous shows out there that have costed, you know, $1 billion or more.
That's an insane amount of money. But
yeah,
that said, so I mean, it was still impressive what they were able to pull off. Just speaking about it visually, and in terms of, I guess the scale seemed smaller. This is the one besides no Protectrons and no Death Claws. The one thing that, the one more serious criticism I would have is that some of the backgrounds felt really plain. There was a lot of scenes just taking place in a barren desert. You didn't kind of get the sort of urban Fallout feel in a lot of places, you know, with the wrecked overpasses and all of that. And I do think that a lot of that comes down to probably budget, because it would take a lot of money to do that. So I'm guessing we'll see more of that in the second season and beyond. And now second season, Saib, has been confirmed or has been soft confirmed?
So no, it was officially confirmed just like yesterday, basically.
Well, they were obviously anticipating it with the way they ended the first season. But yeah, that's awesome to hear. And by yesterday, I don't know when this show is actually going to be going live. We are recording this on April 19th. But so as of the 18th, I guess it was officially confirmed. That's excellent to hear. But I'm going to, after all that lead up, so I'll just sort of finish out my general impressions, and I'll let Saib give his general impressions. Then we'll get into more spoilery territory. We will warn you when that happens. But my general impressions, this show, in my opinion, was awesome. And the reason it was awesome, it felt like Fallout. And by the way, Tim Kaine agrees. One of the original creators of Fallout way back in the day. And Saib, you sent me a video of his reviewing the show, and he agrees it just feels like Fallout. And that is the one thing that I was like, they have to capture that in this show. They can't just do some generic show with a Fallout dressing on it, you know, with Fallout, you know, it can't just be like some other apocalyptic show with Nuka-Cola bottles. It has to feel like Fallout, and dang it, did it feel like Fallout. Except, like I said, some of it felt like a smaller scale thing. You didn't have the vast ruins in the backgrounds in a lot of cases. And so, you know, there were a few shots here and there. It felt a little smaller from that aspect, but again, I'm going to blame budget for that, because I'm assuming that if they could have, they would have just had it all kind of taking place in a ruined city that, you know, where you see all that stuff, where it just feels like you're in the Capital Wasteland, or in, you know, what do they call the wasteland in Fallout 4? Doesn't matter. So it was less urban, but still, it felt like Fallout. It felt like Fallout. You had the 1950s retro futurism just captured perfectly. The ideals of the characters who were raised in the vault, or even, I hope this isn't too spoilery, but you know, the where you see pre-war stuff. You see some pre-war stuff, and they just capture the world so amazingly. giving some stupid commentary about it, right? They let things play out as that sort of 1950 style American dream, and their vision of what the world would look like in the future. And this infuses Fallout in the games, and I thought they captured it almost perfectly in the show. And that's what it needed. That's what this needed in order to feel like Fallout. Like I said, it couldn't just be some generic action adventure show with a Fallout skin on it. Also, extremely well written. The characters have interesting stories. All the characters have foibles and flaws. They feel real. They all have their own views and motives and on things, and they have interesting arcs. You don't have any bland characters, that's for sure. Even, you have some characters who are more idealistic, and then they are confronted with realities that sort of challenge their preconceptions on things. And so, and you see real development, you see real character arcs and real good character development. And also without it, it just shows the flaws of humanity, which is really what Fallout is all about. Looking at those flaws, looking at how ugly the world is, how ugly life is sometimes, and then taking that to its logical extreme, taking human conflict to its logical extreme with a nuclear war that destroys everything. And it just shows the outflow of that and the clash of these different ideas and ideals without getting preachy about it, without having, you just feel like the show's writers are preaching at you and hitting you over the head with their ideological views. There was none of that, and that was so refreshing. If you're hearing the writer speak, or the producer, or the person behind this, if you're hearing that person speaking their ideals, and you're not hearing or just watching, I don't know if I'm explaining this very well, but as soon as you feel like you're being preached at instead of watching a story unfold that you can then take away and think about and process, and that's how I often say, stories are the universal language of humanity. So that's all through history. That's how moral lessons and histories and all kinds of things, they're passed down through stories, they're encapsulated in stories. But, if what you actually have is just a preachy diatribe with a thin story painted over top of it, that's bad writing. Anyway, very well done show. Stayed true to the Fallout world. We'll discuss the lore later, but I thought it was fascinating from that aspect. It did feel like at times the gore was a little over the top, and I know that's true to the games. That is the one thing. It was that is literally true to the game. It is an intentionally hyper gory game. A lot of people don't. Again, this is one of these rose tinted glasses that people are looking at things with. It's no. That's always been a core part of the game. It has, the franchise. And by the way, you could definitely see the writers winking and nodding at the gamers, at people who love the games throughout. Did you know that Tim Kaine played as an extra in the show and had his eyeball blown out? I gathered that from the video you sent me earlier, yeah. The Tim Kaine review. I thought that was very funny and very... Yeah, I didn't realize that. That made me laugh a little bit. Did not realize that at first, but... So... The gore, though, yes, it is true to the game. It absolutely is. It went past the game in certain ways. It just got a little over the top for my tastes at a few points. I'm not saying it shouldn't have been there at all. And, whatever. It is kind of what Fallout is. I gotta be careful not to get into spoiler territory here, but that's my general impressions. Just very well done. I have a hard time coming up with criticisms of it. Now, I do hope that they keep that going, knowing that there's a second season. I do hope they keep that going into the further seasons, because nothing, I mean, almost worse than if it had just been bad right off the bat is if it starts strong and then, you know, falls off a cliff. I think that would be worse than it just being bad in the first place. You know what I mean? To me, it's my opinion. But I will let Saib talk now, and I'll talk more later when we can speak with more freedom about, you know, spoiler wise. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
So yeah, no, the show overall had it's like little bits of it. Obviously, they couldn't, like, showing in the actual post-apocalyptic world in the scenes that we've seen in the previous games is very hard to do. Now 76 is far more green and, like, you know, not absolutely dismal. Like, you got to remember, Fallout 1, Fallout 2, and Fallout 3 are so depressingly gray and dark that there are people who don't play the game because it's just so bad. It's so rough.
Actually, I agree with. I'm on that. It's not enough to make me not play them, but yeah. But yeah,
that's why they've kind of, like, the contrast, especially in New Vegas, where I think they actually hit a perfect window for it, is that the monsters, the radiation, the glow, that's the kind of stuff that is the offsetting thing, and I think that works, like, really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yes, there is a handful of issues with the setting because of, you know, television and the lack of resources to, like, or ability to make just these massive, like, you know, world-changing scenery things. It's like, you got to remember that some of the scenery in the original Lord of the Rings movie was so good because they literally went to the most amazing places on the planet to record that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and doing the reverse here would be really difficult. There are places that look like it's post-apocalyptic hellscape on Earth right now, but those are not places that you actually want to be in. So there is some definite, like, yeah, maybe not go into the red zone.
The war zone, and yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that kind of stuff is a slight problem, and really there's not much we can do about it as consumers, because, you know, whatever. But eventually camera technology will get there. I will be shocked that if in, you know, 10 years from now, movies are not just generally filmed inside of a green space in a room, because everything will be done via, like, you know, the Unreal Movie Engine editor.
Well, some are already. Like, have you seen the setup they use for, like, The Mandalorian and shows like that? It's not even green screen. They have these just giant virtual studios.
Yeah, and they literally drop the scene into the actual, like, background of the show, and they've actually created it's very, very fascinating the way that Unreal is making and altering the way that filmography is done within sci-fi. And it is going to make it cheaper in the long run. Eventually, it's just going to be like, you need a really good costumes team, and then you're, like, set to go. If you got a really good costume team, some good actors, and just a computer with some CGI stuff and some decent cameras, it's like, you're going to be able to make some amazing stuff. So there is this sense, and I say a lot with AI, you know, tech, when it comes to, like, art and stuff. It's like that we are entering the age of the great equalizer. AI will be an equalizer, and it's not always going to favor big corporations, because big corporations can't think and move as quickly as an individual can when creating something unique and new and different. If that was the case, we wouldn't see indie companies constantly leading the way in game development. You know, we've had Vampire Survivors, and we've had a whole bunch of new upcoming RPGs from Larian and all these other studios, where it's like, these weren't made by the big five companies in gaming. These were not even close to being made by them. They can't even catch up. You know, Vampire Survivor's been out for almost 3 years now, and you still don't have a big mega company taking advantage of it because they just don't know how to. And they're still trying to catch up, and they're still trying to like put the pieces together. It's literally like watching some animal like playing with like trying to figure out like a basic toy puzzle. It's like they just don't get the concept at all. So
yeah,
you can't expect that.
They have a much wider turning radius to turn that big.
So,
but let's get back to the show though.
The show, well, I am. So the show that's the basis for the show that you have to think of. It's like it's coming from this big company. They are slow turning when it comes to certain things. So yes, they're not going to nail everything perfectly. I'm not. I like I like the writers, the showrunners, and the directors. Generally, I do not like them perfectly, especially the director. I think that he's good, but he's not great. He's good at his craft, but he's not great because he misses certain things that are like really hyper important that you don't miss those things because it's so important to get them correct. And I think that he's not perfect in that regard. So I'm not a fanboy directly of this, but I think with what we had available to us as a community, as a fandom, this is the best that we could probably have gotten without a lightning in a bottle moment. That the best example of that is Arcane, right? Like Arcane is just this. Yeah. It is this lightning in a bottle, captured not only the feel, the look, the world, everything, the writing, perfect. And I would honestly be afraid to be on the team that's doing season 2 because I would be afraid of not being able to live up to the expectation that sets for the next season.
Yeah, so it's almost too like it's too much to live up to. Yeah.
Whereas here we have this like, hey, the show is not as good and was not as clear and it was not as perfect as it could have been. It's definitely passable and it's definitely good. It's not great, but it's good. And if we're at this point, that sets up the latter seasons to be much better. And I use this example with Max the other day. It's like one of the best examples of this I could show is DS9. DS9 went from this really bad first season. Like it was really bad. I don't know how they managed to hold that out for a second season, but they probably knew at the time that these Star Trek shows need to actually take some time to like get into the groove of things.
Next Generation had a couple of really bad seasons too. The first
horrible,
season.
Yeah, it was if you ever want to watch a travesty of television, you watch the first episode of Next Generation, you face palm yourself and you're like, wow, this is terrible.
No, it's nothing compared to the second episode, The Naked Now. It was so bad. But anyways, so now you said this on Maximum News. By the way, Maximum News, gaming news show hosted by Max there at the Obsidian, right here on the Triple S League every week. Check it out. You were on rec, and this puzzled me, and so I'm going to ask you about it, but I'm going to have you answer it when we get into the spoilers section, because I'm guessing you're going to need to get into spoiler territory to explain. You said on Maximum News, it's good but not great, which in my gut, I disagree with, because I think it's great. It's not. Is it the best show ever made? Well, I don't know. At this point, it's definitely in one of my top 10 for sure of shows that I have seen. And in terms of shows that I want to go back and rewatch, it's number 1 at the moment. But not just for the purpose of doing this podcast and stuff, but just because I thought I enjoyed watching it so much. It was fun, and Fallout also needs to be fun, and they captured that too. Just the balance that Fallout strikes between this dark. I remember I explained to my mom once the premise of Fallout, and she was like horrified. I'm like, but no, it's like also fun and funny and stuff, and she just didn't get it. But of course, she grew up in a
and
time
under
where
the fear of
of that actually happening. They did like nuclear bomb drills in school and stuff, and watch those like old timey videos. It's like, what do you do to survive nuclear fallout? Yeah, stuff like that was real. And like when our parents were kids, like if your side's in my age, our early 20s and whatnot, our parents were watching that kind of thing for real in school. Like it was no joke at that point. But where was I going with that? So I thought it was great. I mean, I'm sure obviously it could be better, but I mean, anything could be better. I guess it comes down to, what does that mean? And I feel like, are we getting into spoiler territory now? Do we have to go
a little bit? I'm going to be talking about stuff that's not in the show that I would have liked to see in the show.
Okay, so this is omission spoilers. So
this is
omission spoiler warning.
Depends on what you feel that involves, or feel that might entail, that kind of stuff. So that's what I'm going to be talking about. So stuff that's
not. We're going to talk about what's not in the show. So if you don't want any hints about that, then now's the time to duck out. But we hope you come back and listen to the rest later. And of course, we're resurrecting this as a series. So subscribe to the Triple S League. You'll catch all the episodes, plus the other content we have. We have tons of guides. We have the Maximum News show, like I talked about, and so much more that we didn't do when we started this 9 years ago. I can't believe it's been that long. Okay, go ahead, son.
So the primary stuff that I would have covered, that I would have added in, is I would have definitely added in a retelling of the first two games. And I would have done this in the sense of like having the main character, once they got outside the vault, they encountered somebody, like an old, person sitting at a fire camp, which again they had, and that setup of like, oh, you're from a vault. Well, we've heard tales tell of people who like you, and the Great Northern Tribe, the destruction of the Master, the mutants threat that was contained by those heroes that came from that tribe, who came from a vault that had that was much like yours. And just that little bit of like, setting the world up and saying like, hey, this isn't the first time this has happened. This has happened many times, and it's always interesting because of the dichotomy of somebody coming from the vaults and coming out into the world and going from a place of like perfect protection and nurture, and where you have all of this access to education and training and classes, and you can spend your entire day living in essentially a combination of military academy and academic academy, and you can become a brilliant person, or you can become somebody who's distracted by technology and games, or you can become a person who is distracted by the little things that happen in a person-to-person scenario, like and rolling on the sort of the roguish side of those things. And in the original characters, so in the original first game, you had 3 base characters that you could pick from. You pick from the big brute, the intelligent, smart, gifted, incredibly gifted, strong, apex young male, or you can pick from the girl who was kind of like beautiful, princessy. She's actually the granddaughter or the daughter of I think it's the granddaughter of a Russian diplomat, and she entertained herself by flirting, teasing, and stealing anything that she wanted at any time that she wanted. And those are your 3 baseline characters that are actually in the lore, because when you pick one, the other 2 are still in the vault. Right. From the narrative lore standpoint, you don't deal or communicate with them, but they're in the vault. Now, canonically, it's the young male alpha who goes out and does all the stuff, but the other two characters are still there. And in Fallout 2's lore Bible that they give you, it talks about those other two characters and what they did and things that happened to them a little bit while the main character, the savior of the first game, was out trompsing around doing his thing. And that is a brilliant way to build lore. And this is something that they've done a little bit in the first season with all the side characters within the vault. And people who right away say that this was a Mary Sue main character, 100% absolutely not.
At all. That was
not at all.
There were
a Mary
people,
Sue.
I see why people were assuming beforehand that it might be, but
yeah.
Go ahead.
So a Mary Sue concept is a character who has power, very little to zero downsides or issues
weaknesses,
or difficulties or weaknesses.
Flaws.
And there is no explanation for it. They're just like that.
Well, even if there is an explanation, but the thing is, the skills that she had, the main character, Lucy McLean, which is the same name as the daughter from the John McClane's daughter from Die Hard. I wonder if that was intentional or not. I think McLean is spelled differently, but I just thought when I heard Lucy McLean, I was like, what? Anyway, the skills she has are explained in like the first 5 minutes of the show, and they don't make a big deal of it, but it's like, yeah, and I live in a vault.
Showcase...
I'm I take self-defense training. I do this and this, but she's not great at. She doesn't come out of the vault and is suddenly like this badass in the wasteland. She's got. She has to learn. She's naive. She has to learn about the world. Yeah, getting into spoiler territory,
so again, the process behind a Mary Sue is that they have all these powers and there's very little to no explanation for them. Now, we know that we have people who are gifted. That is just a fact of human nature and life, is that there are some people who are going to be better than you no matter what you do in a particular field. And that's fine to have that. And in fact, we actually have it in the game set up in the original Fallout games.
Yeah,
and that was a trait called gifted.
Trait, yeah.
Yes, where you were gifted either like physically or intellectually or agility or strength. Like these are just things, and there is the well-rounded person, and we can see these in the characters within the game. You can see these in her brother. Her brother is has skills in mental. His intellect is like at a 9 or a 10. Every other stat that he has, though, is down in the 2s.
You know what? I'm just gonna do blanket. We're doing spoilers now, because we can't. I don't think we can continue this discussion without doing spoilers. So if you don't want spoilers this is your official spoiler warning for this episode. If you don't want spoilers at all, please do come back and listen to the rest after you've seen the show. We would love to have you back, and like I said, subscribe and catch our future episodes. But this is the official spoiler warning, because I want to take the lid off and actually be able to talk about what happens in the show. Lucy McLean, and her brother too, they both have the things they're good at and things they're not good at. And that's the only problem, the Mary Sue problem, is when you have the character is good at everything. Like, for someone to be that's how I see it. Now like,
we again, let me keep on going with this, this train of thought. So the Mary Sue concept is inherently wrong in this case, not in all of Hollywood, because obviously it is a massive problem in Hollywood, generally speaking. Yeah. But in this case, it does not apply because the character is genetically, she won the lottery. Her father is a person who has immense power. He's the Vault Overseer. He handpicked, as we later discover, he handpicked his mate, and they rolled the best dice they could twice, and they won once and they failed the second time. Again, if you're looking at like an overall win, she is very, 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 very blessed. Her younger brother, is not. And then in comparison to other people in the vault, you see the same thing. You see some people are, have a natural dispensation for survival and for being good, and then there are other people who you're like, how did they manage to survive to this point?
Well, they're in a vault, so...
Yeah, and that's the answer, is they are in a vault. And very quickly in the first episode, you discover that just because you're raised in a vault does not mean that you're going to win in a general combat encounter. And this is the thing that sets it apart. And you can imagine other characters going out. So if you imagined instead her brother going out and trying to solve this problem or to try and save this thing, he would have been smarter because he already knew that the world was unfriendly. He already knew that it was
like, I think he would have survived, but in a different way. And he wouldn't have been so idealistic right off the bat. Like
exactly. He wouldn't have made the same mistakes that Lucy made when bumbling into scenarios going, hi, I have all this wonderful stuff and I want to help people. He probably would have known right from the get-go that you don't light a fire out at night in the wasteland. It's just you're asking for trouble. And then you look at the blonde girl, who is one of these plants within the story.
Yes, I'm going to look up her name.
If she had chosen to, if some situation caused her to have to go out and replicate this based off of orders from the overseer or whatever, you would have seen her attach go through the thing completely differently, and that showcases in her character where, she is not physically, she's physically cunning and quick, but she's not physically strong and able to do things that brutes cannot. She couldn't do that, but she immediately sizes up the first person that can do those things for her and gets them wrapped around her finger almost immediately.
That was I was cringing so hard. That scene where the one where her water breaks. Oh my god. Steph Harper is the character's name. She's pregnant at the beginning of the show and loses her eye.
And she very much reminds me of the character of Natasha from the very first game. And so these are the processes. This is the way that this universe is set up. Yep. You do have people who are winners and losers. A lot of the ghouls are losers because of what they've gone through, but a lot of other people have advantages in various ways. And again, we see this in Walter's main character, the ghoul main character in the story. Walton. Oh, it's Walton, sorry.
Walton Goggins. You're not the only one. So many videos that listen to call him Walter Goggins. No, it's Walton Goggins as Cooper Howard, a.k.a. the Ghoul.
Yeah, so you have him where he's in this scenario where he has gotten very lucky based off of being able to survive so long as a pre-war ghoul, which is very rare at this point. You
can call that luck, I mean...
Well, and again, some people wouldn't necessarily call that lucky, but...
Because he can't, it's revealed, that scene where he's like, remember how good food used to taste? And that just... Even though I hated his character at that point, because he's such a bastard... It gave me the feels. It's like you can't taste anything anymore. Your life as a ghoul must be a living hell, you know? And I was like, what keeps him going? And we find out later what keeps him going. But
at the very end, we find that.
At the very end,
what's been keeping him going, which is a very key plot point that we need to discuss later on.
Okay.
But yes, the idea that she's a Mary Sue, that
she's
been given all these powers.
No, she's not. Yeah, she holds her own in a couple of fights.
Mm-hmm. But she also gets her butt handed to her in a bunch of other fights, and she is shown to be, not perfect. She's shown to have her.
It's amazing she doesn't get killed right away. Like she's very lucky. She doesn't. Because she just kind of goes out there and is not at all cautious because she doesn't know the dangers, right? And also assumes that everyone else has the same sort of moral moorings as her, which she doesn't. But she also doesn't, completely give them up either, which is really really interesting. I'm very curious where they're going to take her character in the second season. And the season ended with so many of those interesting moral complexities. I'm still processing them. But yeah, should we talk about some of the other characters and their arcs, or did you have more to say about that?
Oh no, I still got more to say on my like so.
Yeah, go ahead.
Overall, the story is moving in a healthy direction. Again, I would have preferred to have them nod back to some of the previous events. I do worry that they may or may not, like the writers and creators may or may not have actually played Fallout 1 and 2, because there's the Boneyard, we'll get to that, but the whole history of the mutants and the Master, that is a very significant part of history and should be known by at least somebody there, and or should have been mentioned by at least one or two of the ghouls. I think that the scene with the drugged out guys could have been completely replaced. I would have replaced that whole litany of scenes. The outcome would have eventually been basically about the same thing, but what you would have had is you would have had maybe a dude who used to be, or his father or his grandfather or whatever used to be a follower of the Master, and he goes on a little rant about how oh, it could have been so perfect, we all could have been living immortal under the Master's embrace. Now I'm forced to feed these drugs.
Which scene are you talking about?
To the ghoul. So the scene with the two druggies, like the two drug seller guys.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Just wanted
I would have replaced that entire scene with them. I think they're bad characters. I think they are way too current day for something that is like absolutely not. They should have been a completely different character, completely different setup. It should have given us more story background, and this is part of the thing where the show is good, not great, because they had a whole bunch of opportunities to showcase. They started out so good with showcasing the Raiders at the beginning, but it would have been nicer to have it kind of like shown that she had hired these Raiders to do this, instead of like this very ambiguous scene where it's like, wait, is the NCR just like vile cannibalistic raiders now, or like what's going on here with this? Like, again, opportunity lost for being able to like show the difference between like, and again, it wouldn't have been hard. It would have been like the Raiders going, you're backstabbing us. We knew you were backstab us. And then she goes, yeah, I'm backstabbing you, but I've been betrayed in the past before. Get used to it. And then her like blowing up a bunch of the Raiders at the same time as at that end point of the first episode. That's the kind of thing where, again, you kind of set up the world and the factions a little bit more, and you wouldn't have answered like, wait, who is she? Is she a raider or is she somebody else? What's going on here? It would have been left a little bit more like, oh, what's going on here, rather than like just kind of like reeling people back in a footstep to just have a shocking scene that didn't pay out as much as I would have liked. So that, again, this is where my review and what you asked is like, why do I think the show was good, not great? And it's because of little things like this that I see the opportunity to really progress the lore and advance the lore and set certain things into a proper canon and inform the viewers on that. And because they didn't do that, that's what has evolved into some of these people who are very much against the show, because they feel that kind of stuff wasn't handled as properly as it should have been, despite the fact that I think we'll cover that a lot of it was, and that some people are just overreacting.
Yes, but, and I agree with you on that.
That's just a small set of stuff.
Yeah,
kind of approaching the first thing.
But I honestly feel like, I don't know. I felt like they balanced it pretty well in terms of creating a show that would appeal to both the deep lore people, well, maybe not the deepest lore people, obviously, but people who have played the games and also people who have never played the games. And I feel like the problem with introducing something like the Master and the Mutants at this stage, like I hope they start to delve into those histories in the future. But you don't want to bog your first season down with so many threads and so much lore that people get confused and then you don't have a payoff. Like there was a scene where I can't remember which scene it was, but there was a scene where I thought we were about to see a super mutant. And
nope, no super mutants.
No super mutant.
Aside from a hand.
But, you know, the thing is, it would have been necessary to... It's both... If you see a super mutant, it's necessary to explain to the audience what these... Like, maybe not explain, but, you know, delve into that history a bit. But if you delve into that history, then you've also got to bring the super mutants into the story. And if you don't want to bog your story... Like, you've got only 8 hours. They were... Obviously, like, we're told you got 8 episodes. Here's your budget. You got to tell a story in this amount of time. You can't do too much. If it was like a 20 episode first season, like they used to do shows, or like first season of Star Trek Next Generation, just because we were talking about that earlier, I think was 24 episodes.
Yeah. That's a weird thing, eh?
Yeah.
Like how have we gone from like 22 episodes at a minimum in a season, sometimes 36 episodes? Like it's so weird.
Yeah.
To have grown up with shows that have long first seasons, to getting a show that's like, here's 8 episodes, here's 7.5 episodes. You're like, what is going on here? Why?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't know why. Obviously, a show like that, like if they had, I'm guessing and hoping that future seasons will have more. But, like, because you see that fairly often. Sometimes the first season is just kind of short until they find, like Seinfeld. I think Seinfeld's first season was only like 8 episodes or something. It was short. And then when the network realized it was a success, they started doing like 22, 24 episodes a season. Anyway, I feel like if you've got 8 episodes, like by the time, and I went into it thinking there were 10 episodes. For some reason, someone had said there were 10 episodes. And so I had it in my head that there were 10 episodes in the first season. So I got to episode 7. I'm like, this is great. Got 3 episodes left. Can't wait to see where it goes. And then I realized, oh, this is the last episode. I was like, how are they going to wrap all this up without it being an irritating cliffhanger that just cuts off and doesn't resolve anything? But they did it. They resolved it with also having a cliffhanger that is like Tim Kaine explained in his review. They answered a lot of questions. They answered the questions you needed an answer to at the first. I'm paraphrasing heavily, but they answered a lot of questions, but then they also left more. They asked more questions that make you want more. So I thought they struck that balance really well. There's some shows that do cliffhangers that are just so annoying because it's like they just hit pause, and they're like, we'll pick this up later. It's like, no, you didn't. There was no satisfying. There was no arc. There was no climax to the story arc of the season, and you need to. But in this case, there was, and so that was really good. While also, we can look forward to more. So I'm not sure I agree, but entirely with what you said there, but I certainly respect where you're coming from, and I certainly hope we see that kind of thing going forward. I'd love for them to delve more into the history of the ancient, like for them to maybe even start to visit old vaults, that were, or places that were iconic locations from some of the games, or things like that. I feel like this was a starting point, right? And they established a lot of things really well. I thought they established the ghouls really well without tons of tedious exposition, right? And that was really good. Like, when Walton Goggins first seen as a ghoul when they dig him up out of the graveyard, and you're like, what the heck's going on here? And why does he look like a freak? I mean, I already knew because I played the games and stuff. But what is a ghoul anyway? And then you get the answers throughout the rest of the episodes, and they don't have to sit you down and be like, okay, here's what ghouls are. Blah, 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 blah. So I liked that aspect, and thought that it just... I mean, I don't know what's wrong with me, man. I can't find anything. I can find very little wrong with this show, and that's not me. I mean, anyone who's seen my... This is not to say I don't have questions about it, or some things that I'm like, that I agree with you. Like, okay, this could have been done better, but overall, like, this is one of my favorite shows of all time. Definitely my favorite video game to TV adaptation of all time. So there we go. That's how I feel about it. We'll see if my opinion changes on a second watching, but I think I'll probably see some stuff that's like, well, why is that? Why is this? And actually, I wrote down a couple of questions here. Of like, I don't know if we should get into this. Maybe I'll get into them in a future episode, because we should wrap this up decently quickly here. We have more.
Yeah, so let's talk about like my how do I view the series?
Yeah.
Like, am I happy with it? And it's like, yes, how do I view the future of the series? I think very positively, because they're hopefully going to take the lessons that they've learned and introduce a little bit more of the stuff. Overall, I think that all of the actors are giving their 100%. I was very happy to watch the interview with the lead girl, Lucy, where she said that you have to respect the fans, you have to respect the source material. These are all very important things, and that she...
Wait, what? An actor said that? What?
Yeah, Lucy said that. So, and she's talking about how she wanted to... how she went out and she played a bunch of the games in preparation for the role. And it's like, again, it's like, wow, finally she got into like some of the community stuff to understand how people saw it and what they were expecting from it. And I think she did an amazing job. And I think that 100% we've got a winner main character in there. And I think that as long as the showrunners and the director don't go off in a weird direction or start adding
don't try to reinterpret things. Don't don't do any of this BS that a lot of that some people are trying to do now. That's like, well, this is our vision of this IP, or this is our reinterpretation. Like, no, we don't want that.
Please don't.
We do not want that. You can come up with a new story and new characters and all this stuff. Of course, that's what we want. But don't try to reinterpret. Don't try to change what's already there. You're going to crash and burn if you do that. Like, that would be the big mistake, and that's my biggest fear for the coming seasons, is that they'll get some ideologue in there that's like, we need to bring gender politics into the wasteland and investigate the modern power struggle and Trump versus Biden and and we need to put this in the show. And it's like, no, that's dumb. No, fire that person immediately. Like, we don't want to see modern politics. We don't want to see real world, like,
anything, because
this is the balance I was talking about.
This is a universe. Yeah. This is a universe that is so far off of, like, they didn't separate in like the 2000s from our universe. It's like this universe was separated well in the early 1900s, and even further beyond that. I was looking at a timeline of events, and it goes all the way back to Samaria, and it's like, yeah, that's kind of like good. And I would really rather not people try to relate this with current day stuff.
But I'm talking about, like, don't even bring well. Like, this is what ruined The Boys for me. I stopped watching The Boys partway through season 2 and have not watched season 3 because as soon as I heard that one character say, well, I could see hints of them bringing like real world political issues into the show, and as soon as the one character was like, make America safe again, I'm like, off. I'm done. I don't want to see your thinly veiled caricature of Donald Trump in this fantasy show about superheroes and crap like that. Like, no. You want to discuss, and this is just it. This Fallout, the show, it does delve into politics in a general sort of, in a conceptual sense. You want to do that. You want to talk about ideas and concepts and philosophical things and moral conundrums. That's where it's good. You want to talk about things in a general sense, like the whole problems like capitalism versus communism. Like the Fallout show delves into that. And yes, there was a stupid headline in some newspaper that's like, the Fallout show is heavy-handed with is so obvious with its politics, only a gamer could miss it. I'm like, this was clearly written by a self-righteous moron. It's like, yeah, we get it. We saw it. They delve into the, communism, capitalism, which was a big thing, in the 50s, which is the culture of the Fallout world, or the pre-war Fallout world. Like, oh, the commies are evil. Our vaults will keep out the rads and the reds. Wink. I loved that line. That was so good. But and then the criticisms of capitalism and all of and vault tech and its fiduciary responsibility, and how, like, okay, if war is averted, then how does vault tech make money? And then we're left with that big question of, like, did they do something terrible so that they could continue to be profitable? And we'll discuss that. We got a whole episode coming about that. Again, either the next one or the third one. Not sure what order we'll be releasing these in. Yeah, that's how you do it. That's how you tackle these issues. And we should probably wrap it up there. I'll give you the final word, Sib, but yeah, this has been a fun. It's been fun to be back discussing Fallout again, and yeah, we hope you enjoy the new Nuka-Cola Lounge podcast. And don't forget to like and subscribe. But what are your final thoughts there, Sib?
Season 2 is going to be good, I think. I think we're going to see a lot more of this. Some of the best characters in the Fallout series do come from New Vegas. You got Mr. House, you've got Joshua Graham, you've got a couple other characters. You've got the like both of the couriers. Mm-hmm. It's like it's opening up the potential so much.
I should clarify
really looking forward to seeing where we go from there.
Yeah, in case anyone missed it, and this is major spoiler. The last shot of the show shows Hank McClane in his power, so that's the dad, after he's been injured and he's wearing the power armor, walking across the desert toward the skyline of what is clearly New Vegas. So that's why Sib is mentioning New Vegas there. And
yeah,
it's interesting because I didn't even catch it at first because I'd never played New Vegas, but this show made me want to play Fallout again. So I went to the only Fallout game I have not played, Fallout New Vegas, which I've always been told is the best one, or at least the best of the 3D era or the Bethesda era. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Nuka-Cola Lounge. Do leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below, and we will see you in the next one.
We're diving deep into the Lord.